Now, a photograph of a woman breastfeeding her 3-year-old son on the cover of this week's Time magazine has sparked a furious debate over what's known as attachment parenting. The cover photo shows 26-year-old Jamie Lynn Grumet alongside the headline, "Are you mum enough?" So is it just raising a legitimate debate about child nurturing or being deliberately sensationalist in order to sell magazines? With me now, Denise Sumpter, who says she believes in natural-term breastfeeding, and Charlotte Faircloth from the Centre for Parenting Studies at Kent University. And Denise, you are currently feeding a 4-year-old.
I am, yes, that's right, yes. And I think the article and the image especially is wonderful. It's out there. Time has travelled around the globe overnight, and I've seen the internet traffic, and it's wonderful, you know, and all the attachment parent mothers that I know are celebrating.
Is attachment parenting basically just about breastfeeding, or is there a lot more to it?
Well, breastfeeding is one aspect of it. But let me say first of all that nobody invented attachment parenting. Looking after your child, you know, keeping your child close, nurturing it in the way that attachment parenting mothers do, is something that we've done since, you know, the beginning of time, since humans walked the planet.
And so, will you stop your child breastfeeding at any point in time, or will you just let her carry on as long as she wants to?
I will let her carry on as long as she wants. I will follow her lead. She knows what she needs.
So 7, 8, 10, doesn't matter.
Who's counting? You know, a need knows no age. You know, figures are kind of arbitrary.
What do you think of this? Is it a good or a bad idea?
Well, I think what the sort of Time cover shows and what the debate we're having is, you know, really pointing to is how the way in which women feed their children and sort of look after them has become a very, very moralised kind of issue.
Is there anything wrong with what they're doing, though?
No, I mean, there's no evidence. I mean, I'm a sociologist, I'm not a psychologist, but I mean, as far as I'm aware, there's no evidence about, you know, attachment parenting being damaging in a psychological sense. On the other hand, there's no evidence to say that non-attachment parenting is damaging either. I
mean, that's the key, isn't it, Denise? I mean, do you think children who don't get this kind of parenting are disadvantaged in any way?
I think each child, each mother finds their own way. I think it's great.
Is that a no, or? I mean, I know you don't want to attack women, you don't want to be judgmental about women, but you do think it's best for the child, don't you, to do what you're doing?
I advocate for children, and, you know, as I said, we're mammals. This is what we do. We breastfeed the same as any other mammal on the planet.
Charlotte?
That is true, we are mammals, but I think unlike, you know, every other species of animals, humans uniquely have sort of learned how to manipulate their environment in a, you know, a particular way. And so I think, you know, the idea that actually intervention in a kind of natural process is inherently a bad thing is a very simplistic way of looking at it. And I think as well, what I don't really like about this cover is what it does is it sort of puts individual people's decisions as against each other, sort of pits them against each other, when actually how you can feed your baby, or, you know, how you sleep with your baby or whatever, is it's a much broader social question, you know, about maternity leave policies or flexible working or a number of issues.
Are you saying it basically doesn't make any difference to the child, and that it's just about individual choices?
I think in a developed country like the UK, for example, you know, with sort of the breastfeeding, bottle feeding debate, or whether you use a pushchair or a baby carrier, a sling or whatever, a lot of the evidence is kind of overplayed. It's actually a lot more ambiguous than some advocates might suggest.
Because a lot of people on your side of the camp kind of think that's an irresponsible message, don't you?
For instance, if you take the renowned anthropologist Kathy DeTyler's research, you know, she says, of course, you know, this is what we've done around the planet through history. And there's a difference, I mean, between technology and between a species, a living being. But, you know, there's a few hundred years, you know.
We kind of need to get to the crunch of this, which is that in the Western world, isn't it true that a lot of people think that's distasteful? They don't want to see that. That's the issue we're really grappling with here.
But they're happy to look at a page, you know, of a woman scantily clad in a underwear, which is exactly the same. You can see a lot less breast there than you can there.
But Charlotte Faircloth, I mean, how is it we've got to this situation where in the developing world it's perfectly normal for women to breastfeed, you know, 4 or 5-year-old children, and in this part of the world that is regarded as abnormal?
Well, I guess it sort of depends on, your ideas around feminism and ideas about gender equality. I mean, obviously, if you're going to be breastfeeding for 5 years, that's going to have sort of implications for the other kind of choices.
Do you think
might
that's
be able to make.
abnormal?
I think I'm an anthropologist, so obviously, normal is a kind of very, plastic term, basically.
You actually hit the nail on the head when you talked about feminism and choices, because a lot of people pit mothers against each other
Exactly.
by
It's really
saying
unhelpful, I think.
by saying that if you're breastfeeding, you'll be out of the job market. I've heard the phrase you'll be economically inactive while you're breastfeeding. That's absolutely not the case. When you're breastfeeding your child, you're actually saving the government and society money, because your child is going to have benefits. They're going to get less ear infections.
But isn't it true that women who need to go back to work a few months after having a baby don't have the kind of choice available to them that you've taken?
Well, it depends. As I often say, it takes a whole society to breastfeed a child. If the right measures were in place, then
So wet nurses and everything?
Wet nurses are marvellous, I mean, better human milk than any other kind of milk. It's absolutely tailored to a child's needs.
Denise Sumter, Charlotte Fairclough, thank you both very much.